But you know the business. And I know the chemistry.
You want to cook crystal meth? You and me.
That's right.
Wow.
All right, guys, welcome back. We are here, episode 2, season 1. Billy, Adam, Billy, we are breaking down bad, filming locations, episode 2, season 1, Cats in the Bag. And for you, we've got there's only about 4 different locations. Maybe 3 if you're not including repeats. But yeah, this one picks up right where we left off.
Literally right where we left off. I think Walt is having relations with Skylar, and we see the end of that as this episode opens.
Yeah.
I was going to say this episode is primarily about the aftermath of everything we just saw in the pilot and figuring out how they're going to deal with this situation and move forward. They've got these bodies, obviously, in the RV. And I wanted, rewatching this episode, I was reminded how just brilliant it is that, like, this early in the game, there was still such a sense of dark humor in there that really, I think in later seasons, later episodes, there's less and less of that. It gets more and more serious. But what I like about the first couple of seasons is it's still got that sort of, in the infantile stages, it still has that humor, There's a lot of good humor between Walt and Jesse in this one. Jesse in particular, perfect in here.
This one is definitely, it has some comedy bits in it. A few that come to mind is just, well, the one that comes to mind is when you've got Walt, he's trying out Jesse's stash, weed stash, and he's all kicked back, and he's as that character, you would imagine him smoking a joint. That's exactly what it looks like. Jesse comes in, he's like,
"He's smoking weed."
The way he says it gets me every time. Of course, he finds out his weed. But
make yourself at home, why don't you?
Yeah. We have Walt. Finally, he stands up to his wife, and he tells her to climb out of his ass. That's a memorable moment.
So right now, what I need is for you to climb down out of my ass. Can you do that? Will you please, just once, get off my ass? I'd appreciate it. I really would.
And you could tell by her reaction that that doesn't happen very often, if at all. So we're getting a little bit more character development, but we're seeing the dynamic with these two. And this is what's, reeling everybody in. This is what, at least for me, it's what kept me watching. So as far as thoughts, like watching this now, 10 years later, however many years later, comparing it from your first watch, I mean, how does it sit with you? Is it about the same? Do you notice anything different? What are your thoughts on the initial rewatch?
Well, like I said, it's I think the biggest thing that stood out to me that I was really reminded of, I guess, was how much humor was in there. Because this episode, when you really stop and think about what's happening, it's very serious. It's like, okay, we got one body, Emilio's body, and Crazy 8, who's like, for a bit there, they're not sure if he's dead or alive. And then when they realize he's still alive, it's like, okay, we got to do something about this situation. And it's interesting how it's funny, and their conversation about it is humorous to the viewer, but it's such a serious thing. It's like, they know that what they did was serious. They're terrified, so they're trying to make sure they cover their tracks. And it's like Emilio and Crazy 8 got to go. How are we going to do that? They even flip a coin for who's gonna who, and it's just such an insane thing when you really stop and think about what they're doing. It's really crazy, but their chemistry really shines in this one, I think. And I think it was these early episodes that, Vince was taking a good look at that and going, because, obviously Jesse was supposed to be, if anybody watching didn't know this, Jesse was supposed to be killed off. He wasn't supposed to make it to the end of the series. He was supposed to be killed off early on. Wasn't it like season 2 they were going to do away with him?
Well, I think he finishes season 1, and at the end where he's beaten up by Tuco, I don't think he's supposed to survive that. I think his demise was to come from Tuco, and Tuco was going to be a full season 2 antagonist, but the character wanted, the actor wanted out of that headspace, and then Vince saw the wow, like the chemistry with Aaron and Brian, and like, no, we got to keep this Jesse Pinkman character in, and so that's at least what I've heard. I mean, it's been a while, so
yeah. But it's easy to see why, though, man. I mean, once those two start playing off each other, and I think that's this episode. I mean, it's only the second episode, but I really feel like this was the episode where you're starting to see how brilliant those two are together. Like the Odd Couple, polar opposites, but they're just so watchable and believable and great in their respective roles. And
the more I think about the episode now, the more moments are coming to my mind. I could really confidently say that this is a very comedic episode. It's not just bits of humor. I'm thinking about it, and there is a lot of comedy in here. It's just the interactions between the two. I'm thinking of well, this is going to be a nice segue into our first location. Not necessarily the first that we see on screen, but we'll go ahead and get to this location since we're kind of going into it. Is Jesse trying? He's sent to a hardware store called Rax. That is a local chain in the New Mexico area. There's multiple Rax hardware stores, and he's sent to Rax to. You're not told that he's going to Rax. You don't even see an exterior shot. He's just in a hardware store. So he sent the hardware store to get a plastic bin that needs to be, it's a particular specific type of plastic.
Mold it right into the plastic.
Yeah. LDPE, right on, got it. I don't know, man. This feels kind of flimsy. Any decent acid's gonna eat right through this.
Yeah, hydrofluoric. The hydrofluoric acid will not melt through, and
polypropylene.
Yeah, it's right there on the label. He says, yeah. So he's on the phone with Walt to get that, and in real life they don't sell that at all. Just a tidbit there, but Rax. This is the one in Albuquerque, actually, and Billy and I have not. We have attempted to go there over the years, but I think the times that we stopped, they have some odd hours. I think they close at 5 p.m. and every time we would get there, it would be after that hour, and they would be closed, or something would cause us from being able to go in. Now, I've made subsequent trips on my own, and I managed to get in there. One of the last couple of trips I was there, and I finally was able to get inside and get some matching shots of where Jesse is on the phone with Walt here, and then when he gets the bin in the hallway, in the aisle, and he's trying to fit himself in to see if a body can fit. You can see that aisle. The aisle markers are still exactly numbered, the exact same. So it's pretty cool. All the merchandise is different, but of course that's kind of what is to be expected. Real quick, before we move on from Rax, you'll see Rax again, isn't it? Season 3. Season 3
Yeah.
Stay out of my territory scene.
Mhm.
Walt is coming out of another Rax, which is in Los Lunas, which is a town south, the southern neighboring town of Albuquerque. And they chose that because it actually has a big parking lot, and it's just more, it fit more that scene. The Rax that Jesse was in is a lot more smaller scale, not very big parking lot. So I can see why they had to go to Los Lunas for that location. I don't know. Do you have any memories going there at all? I don't recall. I know we didn't get inside together.
No, I don't. I just remember getting out. I just remember taking some shots outside in the parking lot because I know we went to both racks, but they
Right.
were both, for me anyway. It was both exteriors. But fun fact about that scene with Jesse and the tote, the bin. Um, I didn't realize this until rewatching it, and we're gonna put it up on the screen for you to see. But it's when he's sitting down in the bin trying to fit in it. If you look to the left of frame, they have stacked on the shelf, the end cap shelf there, like cases of tubes of caulking. And I manage a paint store, so I'm very familiar with this with this stuff, and I'm familiar with this product. And it is a Red Devil caulking, it's called. And if you look, that actual caulking is there, but it just says Devil on all the cases, on all the rows where it would say red, because I've seen them and I've seen the Red Devil caulking. Where it would say red, there's red, like it's been covered over with red. It looks like tape, but I actually don't think it's tape. I think it's a digital effect. I think they put a digital effect on there to cover out the red, because a lot of people don't think too much about this, but the whole brand recognition thing, when you're making film or television, you don't have the right to use another company's name or likeness. Stuff like this happens, which is why if you ever pay attention, when people are in a lot of films, people are walking up and down grocery aisles and stuff, you don't typically see brand name items on the shelves. Sometimes you do, and I'm not really sure what the legalities of that whole thing is, but because I think even in later episodes of Breaking Bad, you do see, I don't know, like, well, Funyuns, obviously, but like, you see chips and brand name chips and things like that. But I just thought it was really interesting because this is episode 2. Breaking Bad's very new, very early. They don't have, I'm sure as the show went on, a lot of these companies were like, hell yeah, we'd love to be featured or shown in your number one TV show.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought it was a really neat little eagle eye find that most people probably don't know or wouldn't even notice. And like I said, I've seen the episode, I can't even tell you how many times, and I just noticed it today on rewatch. So
Yeah, that's the first time I heard this. So that is interesting, and that does make a lot of sense for them to cover that up. I'll have to look for that next time I watch it. Makes sense though.
Yeah.
Another spot that is heavily featured in this episode is Jesse's house. So where we get a lot of Jesse's house. It's pretty much the main setting because you've got they bring the two guys back, Jesse's driveway there, and as you all know, Emilio is no more. He did not make it. The phosphine gas. Crazy Eight did, and this is kind of segues. Well, to finish up Jesse's house, I mean, obviously we showed a shot of Jesse's house from the last episode, the pilot, and we have been to Jesse's subsequent times over the years. But it's one of those. It's a private residence, so it's not like we had full reign to line up shots for different scenes and whatnot. We've stood, in front of the house to get a shot of us at the house and whatnot. But as far as covering the episode to match scenes here and there, I mean, there wasn't much of an opportunity to do that because there's always somebody living there now. Now I know it's changed owners over time, but every time we've gone, there seemed to be somebody there. Plus, we're not going to blatantly trespass. But speaking of Crazy 8, actually survives the whole deal, and that's kind of the main plot of this episode is how do we get rid of this loose end? And as Billy was saying, they do a coin flip, and Jesse's like, this coin flip is sacred. So Walt is tasked to get rid of Crazy 8, and Jesse is tasked to get rid of Emilio's body. And so before we get all there, we see Crazy 8 gets away, and Walt finds him in the neighborhood, and he's all walking around like somebody like straight out of The Walking Dead. Even the sounds he's making, he's all moaning, and and Walt's like trying to get him to get in the car, and he's spooked and he starts taking off. And when he takes off, he hits this tree. Well, that is our next location for this episode, because it is a very prominent tree. It stands today, and you can clearly see right next to the tree the intersection, Silver and 16th, I think. I can't remember, but Silver is the sign that goes that way. And I mean, here we are. We visited the tree. It was one of our first stops in our first trip, and we recreated it and everything. So
sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Go ahead.
This is another one that is geographically correct.
Right.
It's really is right down the road from Jesse's house. So
yep.
I always like pointing those out because it pops up again and again and again in this series that it's just amazing to me how that it just adds to the realism. It adds to making it feel like real life. Like if he had escaped from Jesse's house, that street that he's, walking down like a zombie before running into that tree is really right down the street from his house. So
it's always nice when we get to a location and we're like, oh wow, this is actually right. They're right next to each other, or they are geographically correct. Like you could actually walk from here to there. Whereas there's most of the time it feels you got a character leaving one spot and going to another spot, and they're like 20 miles away or something. So it's always nice to have a geographically correct bunch of locations.
The other thing about this one is Skylar's kind of on to him, and then we have this great, she knows something's up with Walt. So they leave. Walt and Walt Jr. leave, and after they've left, she calls the number back.
Star 69.
Star 69. That's still a thing. Yeah, that's the first time we hear Jesse's iconic voice message. It's
14833 to the 6 to the 9.
Yeah.
This is the ABQ, biatch.
Yo, 148, 3 to the 3 to the 6 to the 9, representing the ABQ. What up, biatch? Leave it at the tone.
Yeah.
So his number is 1483369. If you pay attention to that sequence, which in the area code, obviously everybody should know. If you don't, the primary area code in Albuquerque is 505. So Jesse Pinkman's phone number would be 505-148-3369, which having the one, this is for anybody who doesn't already know, there are no actual real numbers out there, working numbers that actually have a 1 that starts the prefix of a phone. If you have a 1, it's automatically a non-working fictional number, just like the 555 area codes. or not the 555 area codes, the 555 prefixes. So, yeah, what you were saying. I mean, we get the recording, and then go ahead and talk about his My Shout website, which is like the fictional version of MySpace, because that was the social media go to at the time.
Yeah. So, so Skylar looks up the number. That's how she finds out who Jesse Pinkman is. She finds the name, and he's got like, God, I can't even remember what he had on there. He had like naked women and like pot leaves, and I just remember the imagery. I can't remember exactly everything that it said, but the takeaway from it is that she traced the number to figure out who he was, looked him up. And
he's in the MILF.
Huh?
He's into MILFs.
Yeah.
MILFs? The hell is a MILF?
What's a MILF?
Yeah, that was good.
Yeah. Again, it's if you think about it, it's just constant. I want to say this episode is like 85% comedy.
Oh, it absolutely is. And this is an element of the dark comedy here is Walt being tasked with having to deal with Crazy Eight, deal with as in kill him, because there's no way they can let him go. It's just not possible. He recognizes him, obviously. He recognized him in the street. That's what caused him to run into the tree. Walt's trying to come up with all these different ways to take him out. He's like, he grabs a hammer out of a drawer. He's looking at a butcher knife. And you see these quick little shots of him trying to think of these weapons. And he pulls the guns out of a plastic bag. And then he finally settles on the plastic bag. He looks at that plastic bag. And he's like, oh, I could suffocate him. Goes down into the basement, sees that Crazy Eight is lucid. And he's like, who is that? Who is that? I can see you. And he takes off back up the stairs. And then the next thing you know, he's making him a sandwich. So he comes down and brings him 2 gallons of water, a sandwich, a bucket, and a roll of toilet paper.
Yeah.
And it's like, well, that's... And then what's so great about that is when Jesse finally comes back, he's like, you didn't do it yet? And he's like, I'm working up to it, which really involved the smoking of the pot. And Jesse's like, well, I've already taken care of Emilio. And he's like, taken care of. And Jesse's so proud of himself. He's like, I don't know why you have me running all over town looking for plastic bins when I got a perfectly good bathtub upstairs. Exactly. And then, of course, we have that iconic melting scene where the whole thing just right through the floor. And I'll tell you, man, I loved the pilot. I did. But the first time I watched this, I was 100% hooked after this episode. Mm-hmm. After that came through the floor, it was like, oh my God, what are they going to do? But yeah.
Yeah, I agree. It was, and I'm not saying it just because Billy said it. I mean, like, I remember watching the first season vividly, and it was definitely after episode 2, and I was in. And if you're not, I think if you're not hooked, if you're not wanting to continue to figure out, to see what's going to happen to these 2 guys after episode 2 or even 3, then I'm not, it might not be your cup of tea, but that's what I would tell people. But it only just goes from there. Now you do have some tamer moments here in the next 2 to 3 episodes, because we gotta get Walt's diagnosis out to the family and talk about that and get him on chemo and all that. But and that's all like heavy stuff. But we get back to Walt and Jesse's business, if you will, pretty quickly, and there's a lot of intercuts with the subplots. Yes, we got to talk about the heavy stuff with Walt, but then the pacing of it, going back to the fun. I say the fun stuff, but the dynamic between the two is it's there. You don't go too long of a time like getting back to Walt and Jesse.
Yeah.
And,
I miss this early stuff, man. Like I love the show all the way through, but until rewatching it again now, because it has been a while, I realize how much I miss those days. The old, they're still young, and like the most interesting thing to me is that even though this is kind of extreme, everything that's happening, high school chemistry teacher wanting to cook crystal meth with a former student, it all seems like the sequence of events, especially up until this point, all seem very believable. What's happening, all of these things that are happening seem like they could actually happen, and they could happen just like this, and they just played the part so perfectly that you buy right into it. They sell it completely. Jesse, we've talked about this many times, and we'll talk about it again and again in future episodes, but Jesse he just seemed like somebody you would have known, in high school, or like somebody fresh out of high school, somebody could live right down the street. So to me, it's really interesting to see go back to the very early stages of their dynamic, their working dynamic, and you can see it immediately. I mean, the chemistry is just, it's addicting, it really is.
so yeah, I mean, thinking about the early episodes again, I can't remember if we talked about this last episode. I kind of remember seeing the images in editing last episode, so we must have it. I don't remember talking about it, so I'm going to cover it now just in case. The Mesa Credit Union, where we talk about getting the RV, we obviously have it now, so it had to be in the pilot. Mesa Credit Union is where Walt banks, and he goes to get the money. All of this is all the money he has in the world to buy the RV, and that is actually Rio Rancho as well, where the school is, and that is it's Rio Rancho Public Library. You would never know. Obviously, it was chosen for the way it looks and the way it was dressed. I mean, you would think it was credit union. They put a little sign there, and right out of frame, literally, because we've been there, right out of frame of where they end the shot, is where the real life Rio Rancho Library signage is, which I'm sure was probably just kept out of frame. And then our department put the Mesa Credit Union signage there, but we never see the inside of it. It's literally going toward it. It's all outside. You got Jesse's car in the lot, and that's where we hear for the first time the title of the series, in which I honestly, until this show, and I do want to bring this up, until this show, I had never heard the phrase "break bad."
Man, some straight like you, giant stick up his ass, all of a sudden at age, 60, he's just gonna break bad?
100%. I haven't either. I hadn't either.
And to this day, like, no one, I mean, I've never heard anybody say that. And I don't know if it's like, Vince is from Midwest. I mean, like, I don't know if it's a certain area. I've never heard it in my life.
I think even if you were to hear it now, those people that would be saying it would be saying because of the show, and they know what it means because of the show.
It's famous, yeah, because of the show. So, now everybody's heard of it, but in just everyday, dialogue or dialect, never heard of it in my life. And so at first I was like, what does that even mean? Of course, you hear Jesse say it, and yeah, but that's the first time and the only time we hear any character use those two words together.
Some people actually say, I've seen in fan groups and stuff like that some people think that this, I think it's the next episode, is really the first time you see Heisenberg, so to speak. Or Walt does something that the character of Walter White never in a million years would have done. So I don't know as I subscribe to that notion much personally, but I can see why people say that, because it is pretty drastic.
Yeah. He obviously takes a life, but I honestly think that he was put in that spot. I mean,
he was.
Crazy Eight helped him do that. And he needed him to do that to complete, which was ultimately the goal in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think if Crazy Eight had been a threat to him, a physical threat to his life, I don't know if Walt would have been able to do it.
Yeah.
But then again, we wouldn't have had a story. But so Crazy Eight, in a sense, brought that on. It helped Walt do that. I can't speak for everybody, but I think most people I wouldn't say most people would kill him, but definitely would have restrained him enough to get that plate out of his hand, which we'll get into that in the next episode, because we're already kind of getting ahead of ourselves. But other than that, that is the episode. We covered all the locations. We see Tahajli one more time at the very end of the episode. That is the local kids are playing in the area where they cook, and they stumble across the mask that was left, and that is actually property of JP Wynn's chemistry lab. And so this is your hook, to your cliffhanger, to keep you wanting to watch 3. You're like, oh shit, like that's going to be traced back. And who's going to do that? Speaking of that location, Billy can tell you more about that, because I will just say that he and I did not confirm in person where that is. We know it's in Tahajli, but we did not do there it is. Let's do a side by side, line it up. It was just one of those shots, like it just never really, I guess, made it a point to pinpoint. But he could tell you exactly where that is.
Yeah, I mean, Tahajli is one of those. Well, that's why we refer to it as the Holy Grail, because so much has happened there. Some of the best moments of the entire series and the most iconic moments happen in Tahajli, and it's more than just that one main area, first cook site. There are some other areas out there that they use in other episodes later on, but yeah. So I guess the best way to kind of describe that is when you're driving into Tahajli and you're approaching, you're trying to get to where the first cook site was. You're driving in, you're coming up, and you're going to see that, like almost like a wall kind of this beautiful rock on your left, and you pass the other little rock on the right where the pants flew up in the air. So you're going past that. Just as soon as you pass that, if you look off to your left before you turn into the big, I keep calling it an alcove, I don't know why, but before you would turn in there, right off to the left is where the RV, when they were trying to gun it out of there, they kind of lost control and went off and slams into a rock. It's right there on the other side of that wall. And there's some, I remember there being rocks there. Again, this was just rewatching the episode today. I was like, oh yeah, okay. You know, I could see it, I could visualize it. But like Adam was saying at the time, like that was not, we didn't look at that as a location per se. I mean, we did go to the spot where the RV goes off the road, and we were standing around there and we were looking around trying to find things that we recognized. And I'm pretty confident we were in the exact spot. And I was telling him earlier that I felt like we probably stood on that rock that little girl was standing on when she put the mask on. We probably stood on it just as we were walking around there looking at the area. But again, this was in the very beginning. So like we were still getting our feet wet and finding our rhythm and sort of how we do what we do now. And so it was a lot of like just exploring, and we were just so excited to be there, you know, taking pictures of everything. And
to add, I mean, not to mention when we got there our first time, the show had already ended. The show had been over for just over a year when we first stepped foot on Tahajli. So when we're getting to Tahajli, we don't know if we're ever coming back. We're treating this as like our last time. So we're trying to think of there's so much that goes on Tahajli in the entire series, but two guys fresh, into Tahajli with all the Tahajli moments and running through our minds. What are we trying to locate? The intense, the memorable moments, and the girl finding the mask was just not one. So we're tracking down this. We're tracking down the rock that Walt hides behind, where Hank was shot, all of the cow house line, all of that. And so the last thing we're thinking about is, remember in the pilot, the end of episode 2, where does that mask? So it's just one of those that just kind of slipped.
Like you just said, there were so many different things that happened there that were obviously way more relevant to the story overall. And this was this was the second episode of the series. That doesn't add a whole lot to the plot as far as a cliffhanger goes. So I feel like, I don't know, it just wasn't one that this would have been a location that over the years, as we've gone back and done more and more, we would have had a conversation like, we should rewatch the series and see if there's any other like little nuggets that obscure ones that nobody's ever tried to do, and see if we can find those. But yeah, we just never thought about it. But I'm 100% confident that we were there. We were right there where that was.
Oh, and it picks right back up at the beginning of episode 3, where we're right there, that same location, because Hank and Gomez find the mask. Well, they go out there, and that's when we figure out where that mask came from, and it gets traced back to Walt and his school. So
that's right. I guess it is a pretty big plot point.
Yeah. Okay. So I think that pretty much wraps everything up. There was about 4 locations into this. There's Tahajli, which we've covered, and then we've got Rax and Rax Hardware, Crazy H Tree, and Jesse's house, and which we were there but couldn't get in those exact spots. But other than that, again, it's a good continuation episode to the pilot. Very comedic episode, and for Billy and I, it was the one that we finished it and we were hooked. As soon as the bathroom floor fell out and we see all that mess fall down. What's the line Walt says?
You see, hydrofluoric acid won't eat through plastic. It will, however, dissolve metal, rock, glass, ceramic. So there's that. Again,
That ends the consistent comedy that's in this episode. And after that, we were in. So that's all we got for this week's episode. And I'm not going to make any promises, but Billy and I are actually not going to be 2,000 miles apart here in about, what are we at, 4 days?
4 days.
We're going
4 days out.
4 days out. In 4 days out, we will be in the same room. We're going to be in Kentucky for an event, and I'm hoping, no promises, that we can do episode 3 in person together. That would be a cool opportunity. So, but other than that, I got nothing else for you. Hopefully, you guys like the change of scenery here. I thought it was fitting. I'm no longer in a car. This is, and then you got,
I love it. I was going to say that's much better than mine. I haven't changed anything yet. I'll eventually try to get a backdrop, but I did put on my Breaking Bad T-shirt. One of my like 3
I've
dozen.
never seen that shirt.
What's that?
I don't recall seeing that shirt at all.
Oh man, this is you know what's funny about this shirt? I don't think I've ever seen this anywhere else. And I couldn't even tell you where I got it. I bought this shirt and I haven't seen it since. I've never seen anybody else wearing it. You know, if I'm not going to change my backdrop, I'll just swap out Breaking Bad shirts and
there you go.
Grab a prop from my shrine every now and then.
You got your pink teddy bear, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Next time you should put him right over your shoulder on that couch right there.
That's exactly what I'm going to do.
Next to you, yeah.
Yeah, I have the pink teddy bear. I have Freisenberg, the Mr. Potato Head. That's yeah, I'll bust him out at some point.
There you go.
Yeah.
So you'll see our scenery change here and there. Maybe we'll bring a prop or two out the feature, depending on what's going on in the episode. Kind of show y'all our collection. Again, no promises, but just keep it visually interesting for you.
Well, if nothing else, and we're just boring and we're rambling on like fools. You should tune in every time just to check out and see what's changed in the backdrop.
Yeah, that would be your challenge. Okay, how does it look different this week than last week?
Yeah, I like that.
Where's your? Don't you have it framed? The picture of you and Brian from 2016. Is it? Oh, there he is, right there.
I've been blocking this whole time.
Center of your screen, right behind. Yep.
I could have sat a little bit over to the right. That would have made a little more sense. But
if y'all look closely, right behind him, right in the center of your screen, if you want to zoom in, maybe I can zoom in editing. Here's my zoom in and editing. I'm doing it right now. Zoom. There it is. Brian and Billy, 2016, Albuquerque, when he did his book stop for My Life in Parts. So fun stuff. We got a lot more coming for y'all. A lot more. But that's it for 2.
All
Looking
right.
forward to the next one. And hope y'all enjoyed. See you on the next one.
All right. See ya.
My name is Asac Schrader. You can go fuck yourself.
We got it.